Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Tactical Harmony. And today I have a very, very special guest. And after I introduce him, you will understand why. Allow me to introduce Dr. John Murray to our show. Dr. John Murray is a compassionate veterinarian specializing in home end of life care. Raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, he was surrounded by animals from a very early age, purchasing his first horse and developing a lifelong passion for animal care. His dedication to this work is deeply personal. His blue heeler, Heidi, has been by his side since the start of veterinary school, and his thoroughbred gelding, Chance, accompanies him on evening and weekend trail rides. These relationships have shaped his understanding of the profound bond between pets and their families and guide his approach to end of life care. Dr. Murray is deeply passionate about client education and believes that informed, supported families are better able to make decisions rooted in love rather than fear. Through thoughtful conversations and educational content shared on social media, he works to normalize difficult discussions, provide clarity around quality of life, and help families feel less alone during emotionally overwhelming moments. He is committed to providing peaceful in-home services so pets can remain in the place they know best, surrounded by the people who love them. Each visit is approached with patience, respect, and the belief that the final moment deserves to be unhurried and deeply personal. Dr. Murray, my heartfelt welcome to our show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
My first question for you is, how did you get involved with euthanasia and end of life care? Like, is this something that, and please forgive my ignorance, is this a class or a teaching they offer in vet school, or is this something that you happened upon after you graduated?
Yeah, to be honest, we didn't have, a bunch of education or training on it in school. Definitely something that kind of developed after I graduated. So I was working full time outside of Des Moines after I graduated, and our clinic would be getting a lot of calls looking for in-home, end of life services. And unfortunately, it can be a little bit trickier or difficult for clinics to offer that as well as kind of running their brick and mortar hospital. So that is something that unfortunately, we would have to turn them down. So I did get connected with a larger in-home euthanasia group at that time, and something I started doing it, more part-time and kind of on an as-needed basis when these pet parents would call. And recently, in the last year, we moved over here to the Chicago land area, and the business has grown immensely, and helping a lot more pet parents here more full-time. And I've transitioned, to doing it almost 7 days a week here in the Chicago area.
Wow. Yeah, and that's how I found you, was online on your social media channels, which we will make sure that we share at the end of this episode. And I think what you're doing is very, very, very profound. And let's transition over here. I am sure that you get this question all of the time, Dr. Murray. How does a pet owner know when it's time?
Yes, it's the $1,000,000 question. And I say that there's so many individual factors going into it. Your dog's health and your health as a caregiver and aid to them is the top priority. Something, we like to look at is their quality of life, and, putting it pretty, very broad spectrum. But I always, say, think of the top three or the top five things that your dog loves to do every day. So whether that be mealtime or going in the car or just laying, next to you watching Netflix. And when they're stopping to do those things on a consistent basis is when, considering their quality of life. Another thing I love to help measure this is a quality of life scale. It's, puts it into numbers, how your dog is feeling every day. And of course, they say it's not the Bible. Don't take it, as 100% truth, but use it to help track trends. Rather than one good day, one bad day, use it to track the trends over how your dog is feeling throughout the day, and then multiple days or multiple weeks in a row before making this decision, because unfortunately it's a irreversible decision, and I say it's the hardest decision any pet parent has to make, because it truly is the most selfless act of love that you could ever give them.
Amen. It is a selfless act of love, and it is an act of love that you give your pet. And I've had to do this now 2 times in my life, one of which is very, very recent, Diego, and I dedicate this episode to Diego, my 17-year-old sweet baby, and it is gut-wrenching. And to be able to, like you do, and I appreciate so much, to have these conversations and make them very candid and to normalize it so pet parents don't feel alone or that they're on an island by themselves and no one's ever gone through this and they're not sure what to do, and is it too soon? Is it too late? To have this scale and to have some structure with it, I think is really important. And I think intuition also does play a big role. You know your dog, you know your cat, you know your animal better than anyone else on this planet. And it is in my heart of hearts that I believe and have a conviction that they will let you know. They will let you know in whatever way when it's time. Okay, so Dr. Marie, let's talk about the process of euthanasia. Can you walk us through a high level overview from start to finish? What does it look like?
Yeah, so it can vary a little bit, of course, by which veterinarian's doing it and, if you're doing it in home versus at the veterinary clinic. I can talk about, mostly the in home first, but then I can touch on the in clinic side as well. The appointment, really starts before I even get there. I'm in contact with the families, before the appointment and before I even arrive, pending some dogs, if they get upset by having strangers in the house or having anxiety, most certainly we start with medications to give them before, before somebody even arrives or before I even arrive. So it's anti-anxiety and calming medications to give them, the night before and even hours before the appointment even starts can really help just keep everything calm and very peaceful. And then when I arrive, I never ring the doorbell or knock on the door. That's definitely a trigger for a lot of dogs. It might not be for the specific dog we're there to see, but if there's other pets in the house, it can most certainly be a trigger as well. So I always send a text message when I arrive and meet the owner at the door instead of, making this very loud arrival as per se. And then getting there, I love to talk with the owner a little bit about, who their pet is, what their favorite things to do are, and really get to know them and their pet personally because it's very intimate. I'm coming into their home where their pet has always been its whole life. So I love to learn a little bit about that. And then it's a series of 2 medication injections. The actual process itself, it's completely painless, so your pet isn't going to feel any pain during this process. But the first medication I give them, it's a sedative with some also pain medications, anti-anxiety meds, and then some anesthetic properties as well. And I give them just a little prick under their skin in their back leg. And after about 5 to 10 minutes, that will just slowly put them into a really, really deep sleep after about 5 minutes or so. So they'll slowly start to get tired, lay down or rest their head kind of on you or in their bed, wherever they're most comfortable, and then start to welcome into a really, really deep sleep. And then once they're in a deep sleep, I'll take a look at their veins, either in their front legs or in their back legs, and then administer the final medication through their vein. So it can be a really, really peaceful process.
How long, when the final medication is administered, how roughly, I know every dog is different, but roughly how long does it take?
Usually takes about 1 to 2 minutes.
1 to 2 minutes. Yeah, it's pretty fast. I will say, and I'm going to do my best to share my own personal lived experiences, not, medically trained. My soul dog, Clover, as I call him, in 2022, when we set his spirit free, it took a little bit longer. Now, he was a bigger dog, he was 50 pounds. And Diego, it was within seconds. And again, my only baseline or experience was Clover, which took a little bit longer, but Diego was instant. And again, different dog. Diego was smaller. He had heart disease, kidney disease. Clover had none of those things, but it was very different. So, Dr. Murray, is there anything that pet owners can be aware of? Dare I say something alarming that could happen, or something that might happen that could jar a pet owner that's natural as a part of the euthanasia process? Like, I'm aware that their little bodies can twitch or their eyes might stay open. Can you share some of those things for us?
Exactly. Of course, our goal as veterinarians and even as pet owners is to have, this transition as peaceful as possible. But unfortunately, I always say, euthanasia still is medicine, and it's medicine isn't always black and white. So we can't always predict, what's going to happen or how the pet's going to respond every time. Some, like you mentioned, the eyes, a lot of times they do stay open, and that can definitely be jarring or scary for a lot of pet owners because, we envision them falling asleep and closing their eyes. But unfortunately, sometimes as the muscles around their eyes relax, they can stay open. Another really common thing is sometimes that their tongue can come out of their mouth just a little bit as the muscles, and the tongue start to relax. And especially if we're giving them, lots of treats or peanut butter, as this process is going on, that can have it, their tongue come out a little bit as well. Another thing that can be a little alarming is when we're giving that first medication, sometimes, that little poke, it can sting. So sometimes there is a little bit of vocalization or the dog is getting, a little bit agitated, which can be normal. But it can definitely, some dogs, just like some people, are more sensitive than others. And if they have other chronic conditions going on, that can kind of make them more sensitive to nature or to touch or any pain response as well. And unfortunately, another common thing we can see is something called agonal breathing. It's when it's kind of the body's response to passing away, and it's all the air kind of exiting the lungs, at the very end, and it can be perceived as some very quick gasps, like coming in and then the air going out, and it can most certainly be very alarming, and it can kind of look like your pet is struggling to breathe in those instances. But rest assured, your pet has already passed at that time, and it's kind of the body's natural reflex, unfortunately.
Yes. And I think it's important that I know this might be hard for a lot of people to hear, but it's important that we increase that awareness and have these discussions. So if it does happen, the pet parents, the family, the loved ones that are surrounding this beloved little pet doesn't freak out or take away from the process of that peaceful passing. So I appreciate you kind of walking us through some common things that you might see. Okay, Dr. Murray. So part of your message is decisions that are rooted in love, decisions not rooted in fear. Was there was there an experience that kind of led you to this sentiment? Was there something very jarring or a very I'm going to say quote unquote bad experience that you were around that kind of led you to preaching this message?
Personally, I haven't experienced any, you know, crazy experiences or revolving this. I mainly base it off of fear come from the unknown. So if we don't know what to expect or if we don't know what's going to happen, that can most certainly create a lot of fear. I hear it a lot, especially with first time pet owners or first time dog and cat owners, that they're really afraid to make the decision because they don't know, one, what the process is going to be like. They don't know if their pet's going to be in pain, and then they don't know what's going to happen with their pet afterwards. That can be, is honestly one of the main drivers of why I started posting on social media, was to help bring this education to light and help, explain these processes, especially to first time pet owners. So it's not a decision made out of fear, because at the end, if their quality of life is really, really poor and they are suffering, it's definitely something that we do want to make that decision out of love. And it's truly the best thing for them at that time.
I'm so glad that you didn't have a bad experience or something that kind of, led you to that. Cause I think so often, like outside of your expertise and discipline, people have something pretty catastrophic or, a big, profound event in their lives that leads them to open the business or start the podcast or make a big life change. So I am very grateful to hear that that was not the case, but it was your experience and profession that you're like, you know what? We need to get this out. We need to normalize this. And again, I love your content because it really is so real and extremely relatable to me. Again, as I recently had to make this incredibly hard decision for my sweet Diego. So let's talk about regret. I think and I did this. So I'm going to throw myself out there and I think this is very natural. But he's still eating, but he's still pooping, but he's still wagging his tail every other day. but he's still, going on walks, although they're shorter, he's a senior dog. He's still doing these things and you're kind of clinging to that. Is there is there a common regret that you see with these families when kind of going through this process that you could share with us?
It's definitely it can kind of happen, on both ends of the spectrum. Did I wait too long or did I do it too early? And, most certainly if you are waiting too long, it can be, extremely difficult when you're kind of replaying back these moments in your head of, oh my gosh, my pet, potentially was suffering or it did have a really poor quality of life for some time because I was really having struggling to make that decision, which is 100% valid. But then on the flip side of the coin, it's, "Oh my gosh, am I doing this too early? What if we could have, good more days or good more weeks left? Am I, you know, doing this too early per se?" So that can unfortunately, it's regret is very, very common around this topic because there's no perfect time to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're right. And again, I'll go back to the intuition of when the time is right. And for folks that are feeling that regret or guilt or any of those things, it's for me, it all stemmed from love. You were feeling these things, you were thinking about these things because it all comes from the source, which is love. And it may not be comforting to you when it's very fresh, but if you keep that in your awareness and you understand the love and the life that you gave these little beings that came into your life for whatever season that you had them and however many years or even months, it all it all comes from love.
Yes, no.
Okay, Dr. Murray, leading up to the appointment, is there anything that families can do to prepare before your arrival?
Most definitely. I always say spending, genuine quality time with them is one of the best things that you can do. I'm even guilty of it myself. I was outside playing ball with my dog yesterday and I noticed I'm on my phone. I'm doing a phone, on the phone call, sending text messages. And it's like, hey, my dog is giving me her undivided attention. I should be doing the same. So I think, generally just being present for them can mean a lot, during their final days or weeks leading up to the appointment, as well as spoiling them with so many of their favorite treats, so many of their favorite foods, I think is amazing. As well as another important topic could be, speaking with other family members on how you would like this process to look like. Do we want to do it outside on their favorite deck or on the couch or in their bed? I think can be, it's something a lot of pet owners don't necessarily think about, but it can be something to help this process go really smooth. In addition, thinking about, their aftercare choices. Would you like your pet cremated? And if so, would you like their ashes back or not? And now, of course, we have a lot of different options in terms of that. There's water cremation versus fire cremation. There's so many different choices that if it's you're making all these decisions at once and it's a very emotional time, right at the end, it can definitely seem extremely overwhelming and just add an additional level to the process, unfortunately.
What is water cremation? I have never heard of that.
Yes, so it is definitely a newer thing in pet aftercare, and it's available for humans as well. But it's using water as the main source to break down your pet's cremains, and the ashes are actually coming back white compared to the traditional black ash that you receive. So it's a really interesting process that is becoming really popular, especially for pet aftercare. It just is it sounds a little bit weird, but having your pet's ashes white is they're really pretty, especially if you're planning on scattering them, things like that. Compared to the traditional black ash, and then there's claims that it can be more environmentally friendly because we're not putting these pollutants into the air for fire cremation.
Wow, I learned something new today. I did not know that was an option. That wasn't an option that I had here in Montana. Although I am currently waiting for my sweet Diego's ashes to be returned, which takes some time. But there's something that I want to pull out that we were just talking about, and it's the planning. So I asked you, hey, what can folks do to plan? I also want to call out that you can plan and it may not end up that way. And that was the case for me. And so I want to share that because I think it's important for pet owners to be aware of. So for Clover, I was able to plan it. We did it along the Clerk Fork River here in Montana. on a beautiful September morning. The birds were chirping. It was blue sky, sunny, crisp air. It was everything that you could envision for a peaceful passing. And P.S. Clover loved the water, so it was absolutely divine. For Diego, I had the vision because I knew we were getting close that we were going to do it here in my property overlooking the mountains, one of his favorite spots. I can point to it behind me. And the sun was going to be exactly where we wanted it to be because he loved sunbathing and it was just everything I wanted. And his German Shepherd, Belgian Malinois sister, Ivy, was going to be there. Love it, right? That didn't happen. That did not happen for me. I had to make a decision when I was on the road a couple of hours away from a clinic that was able to see him, and I had to make that very loving decision on that at that moment. And it didn't make it less loving or peaceful. We still did it in the sun outside and all of those things in my arms, but I didn't get to have Ivy there. I didn't get to do it the way that I wanted. And I want to share that this lesson that Diego taught me, and that was that of surrender. We can try to force an outcome all we want. That's wonderful, but that may not be the outcome that you receive. So you focus on the process and the journey and the love and who you are becoming, and like you said, the presence that you have with your dog Heidi and the presence that you have in that moment, and don't let anything or anyone rob you of that. And then know that it's going to be divine, and how it's going to unfold is how it's going to unfold. And on the rare occasion, like I experienced, I wasn't able to dictate that beautiful exit on the mountains, doesn't make it more less loving or peaceful. And so I just want to make sure that I really called that out for people, because I know that was something that I've replayed in my head. And that's not loving to me. And that's not loving to Diego.
No, most definitely. And I always say, your pet or your dog or your cat they're going to remember all of the years of the good moments that you've had with them. Even if the ending is not a picture perfect ending like you imagined, they're still going to remember all of the years. And that's something that I think you should try to remember as well as a pet owner, is all of the amazing memories you've had with them over the years. And it can be, really hard to not replay their final moments, but to really think about all the incredible good moments, good hours, good years that you've had with them beforehand.
Absolutely. It's a small little, I don't know if this is the right word, blip. Like they're not thinking about that. The years of love and adventure and car rides and travel and treats and walks and rides and all of the things like that makes up the majority of their lives. This one event, although profound for you and heartbreaking, it's a little blip in their life. Beautiful segue to talk about grief. I am in the thick of it right now, and I'm very proud of myself. I have not cried or teared up in this podcast interview. And if I do, that's amazing. And I've got my tissues ready. I already told Dr. Murray about that. But let's talk about grief. We experience it. Again, I believe that, the depths of our love are the depths of our grief. We draw it from the same well. And I'm feeling every bit of it right now in every cell of my body. And I think that there's this, what's the word? Stigma, a theme out there that we should not grieve pets as much as we grieve humans. Or how dare you, it was just a dog, or something very cruel or not very kind that you might hear. What are your thoughts, and how do you share your message, and what would be your response to someone who's kind of going through this, who's feeling shame, or others might be shaming them for grieving a dog or a cat very, very hard, but it wasn't a human?
Yes, most certainly. I am a firm believer that losing a pet can be harder than losing a loved one. These animals, dogs, cats, horses, pocket pets, whatever you have there, are truly with us every single day of our lives, from the time we got them to the time that they pass, and they are providing their unconditional love for us throughout those years. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, or for your aunts, uncles, parents, a lot of times, maybe we don't see them every day. We're only seeing them maybe on major holidays, or when we travel, or a couple times a year. So that can, most certainly be part of the process, as well as we're seeing these. I'm looking back at my dog right now. We're seeing them truly every day. They're seeing the best, the worst, the mundane moments of our lives. They're experiencing those with us, whereas certain loved ones or other family members or friends, we're truly only seeing a handful of times a year, if not less frequently. So I think that can play a big part into it as well. And especially with people, there can most certainly be, we're all human. We all have our disagreements. We all have our, little tiffs in life. So that can definitely be a layer of the process where our dog, yes, sometimes she, um, gets into the cat's food she shouldn't, or is getting her muddy paws on the door, but 2 seconds later I've forgiven her, and we're being best friends again. So it's definitely something that not having those sort of conflicts with our pet every day, because they're truly they just want to love with us, they just want to be with us every single minute of the day.
It's an unconditional love, it's an uncomplicated love, and they teach us so, so much, and I wrote a book about it, Unleashed, and all of the things that they teach us, and yes, Clover and Diego and Ivy, my Mal, are in the book teaching us all these things, and forgiveness is one of them. They're not holding on to grudges, they're not holding on to things that hurt them. They're living in the moment, which we talked about already, is that the presence, the force, the mindfulness, they are fully steeped, they are fully present in the moment that they are given. They're not worried about someone that made them mad 5, 10, 20 years ago. And they're certainly not worried about their next meal or what could happen in the future. And as humans, we rob ourselves of so much joy and it's natural, but we're worried about things. We're worried about, hey, what are we going to do later today? And one of the gifts that I have really been given with my dogs is if I'm here with you. I'm not worried about what I'm doing after this. I am here with you, Dr. John Murray, having this amazing, heartfelt conversation. I'm not worried about anything else right now. And so may we be as fortunate to embody what dogs and cats and animals teach us. And one other thing, too, and I think this is pretty obvious, but like the routine change. I've experienced this so very much in the very short time Diego has been physically gone, because I know that he is with me in spirit. It's a huge routine change. So I find myself doing new things, creating new habits, and it just feels so different. And it's hard to explain and how it affects your mind and your body, but yeah, it takes a huge toll on you, and so to making sure that you give yourself that love and grace. And the final thing I will say to this part is I think people do the very best they can. So for the person that might say something that you perceive as unkind, they're doing it from love. They maybe want to check you or get you out of it or get you out of a negative headspace, or they might change the subject and you're thinking, how could you be talking about something so trivial when I'm going through this heartbreak? And I know I've had, those haunting thoughts go through my mind, and I remind myself that family, friends, loved ones, colleagues are doing the very best that they can, and they're loving you and supporting you in the way that they know how. And I will say this with love, it's not their job to get you through it. It is not their job. And so to give them that power is giving away your power. And in tactical harmony, we maintain our power and we lead ourselves through all the things, mind, body, and spirit. Dr. Murray, let's talk about caretaker relief. I think this is something that comes up and something that I've experienced because Diego required a lot in his final months. And to have a sense of relief when your pet just left can sound pretty heartless to the outsider. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, and it can add, even another layer of guilt that, like you're making this decision out of convenience, which you are most certainly not. Caregiver burden is definitely a topic that warrants discussion, because it's such a heavy. It kind of comes in layers too, because I feel like it with any senior pet, or if your pet has a terminal illness, or just they're getting older with aging, it of course can start slowly, and then it builds and builds and builds, and then you get to a certain point where like, oh my gosh, how did we get here? I've met with a lot of dog owners, and most recently it was an amazing elderly couple that their pet was having some difficulty with its seizures and its brain activity. So for the last 18 months, they've told me that they haven't left the house together. They've always left somebody at home with the dog. It was a very large dog, so they were unable to put it in the car and travel with it. So for the last 18 years, they weren't able to go out to a restaurant together. They were telling me they weren't able to go out and do things, go to family events together, because someone was always there with the dog. And that can most certainly be and like I mentioned, another added level to this quality of life conversation, because I always say us as humans, if our cup isn't full and we're not being the best version of ourselves, then we can't give our dogs the support and aid they need to be the best version of themselves as well. So caregiver burden is most certainly real, and it definitely plays a factor in your pet's quality of life as well.
It absolutely does. Like you said, you hit on everything. The guilt, the relief, and it's my it's my truth that the relief that I felt wasn't that I didn't have to administer a certain medicine at a certain time or let him out way more frequently because his little organs could not hold in the pee and poop like he did in his spunkier younger years. It came from he is no longer in any potential pain or discomfort. And was it fun for him that he had to take this medicine and when he used to take it so effortlessly, and then in the recent months he didn't take it so effortlessly, so I had to do different things. Yeah, like these are things that kind of come through your channel, that come through your mind and heart, and the relief isn't from not doing that. The relief is that he doesn't have to endure that. And like you said, Dr. Murray, like looking at the baseline and developing a pattern, and you know your dog, you know your cat, your animal, and are they changing? Are there subtle differences? Are there not subtle differences in their behavior and what they do and how they show up? And I can say with certainty that Diego had a lot of very different changes in the recent months. And so that relief comes from I know he is at peace and he is still with me in spirit, but he is not having to go through some of those things that were required in these last few months while we were assessing and ascertaining and all of the things. And another thing is guilt. Guilt for me, and this is my personal experience, and I would love to hear your thoughts. For me, guilt is easier because I'm making something my fault. Should I have done it sooner? Should I have not waited? Was I waiting? Could I have done something else in addition to the acupuncture and the laser therapy? You name it, I did it. Guilt is easier for me because I'm making it my fault and I'm beating myself up versus the grief and letting it wash all over me and the pain and the heartbreak. What are your thoughts on guilt as a part of the grief process?
Yes, I feel like especially in end of life care with your pets, they can come hand in hand because like I mentioned before, a lot of pet owners, you're never going to feel 100% confident in your decision. It's one of the hardest decisions. And like I said earlier, it is irreversible. So I'm seeing, a lot of these pet owners, they're never going to feel wake up and be like, oh my gosh, today's the day. Like you were kind of experiencing, it's a very fluid situation where, things can happen, especially pretty quickly and end of life. So it's definitely something that, the guilt can kind of come over after the fact that you are replaying your decision making and everything, again, which can be really hard to live. But I always just say, just know you are not alone when you are experiencing these things because a lot of other pet owners and dog owners are experiencing these same feelings and emotions.
Yeah, we sure are. And two things that have helped me get through it. Number one is it's not loving to me and it's not loving to Diego and his memory and anyone in my sphere and in my ecosystem and in my world to beat myself up. That's not loving. No one is replaying that except for me. And again, if we subscribe to, hey, this is just one moment in this dog's life, it's their final moment on this physical plane, but it's one moment. Let's replay the amazing memories and look at those photos and videos. And I have probably thousands. And you betcha I have been studying those and going to that place. And it's also a reminder wow, he was so spunky and full of life and running around and going in circles. That was not the case these last couple of months. So, if anything, it can help reinforce the decision, however that manifested for you, whether you did it in a clinic, whether you did it outside, whether you did it in your home, wherever, it allow that to be reinforcing the contrast and the difference. Because when I'm looking at those older photos and videos, holy wow, like different dog. And so that also gave me peace and helped me turn down the volume on the guilt and allow just those emotions to wash over me and to just walk alongside the grief, not numb it, not distract myself from it, but fully experience it, which I believe is a gift in our human journey is those opposing emotions, love and grief, the light and the dark. And that's such a gift that our babies give us. All right, Dr. Murray, how do you take care of you? This is such an emotionally heavy topic, and I can only imagine, like, you're surrounded by grief and tears and regret, like, heavy, low frequency emotions. How do you take care of yourself
Yes,
throughout?
no, I really try to be a calm presence, in these owners' homes when we're going through this process because, like you said, there can be, most certainly a lot of emotions because it is one of the most emotional times of your life, going through this. So I try to always, remain a calm and confident presence during this process. But kind of one of the things that I do to kind of keep my own cup full is I like to go to the gym every day, try to go between 4 to 5 times a week. So I wake up and that's, one of the first things that I do just to kind of set the tone and get the mood right for the rest of the day, feeling good, get the endorphins going. As well as I love to spend quality time with my dog. We're always going on walks around the neighborhood, going on certain hikes, things like that. And then I'm very fortunate. I do have my horse very close to my house here, just a couple minutes down the road at a neighboring property. So always going over there, even if I don't have enough time for a short ride, just going, brushing, spending time in the pasture with him is, can kind of reset the day and make me feel really good.
That's amazing, and it's so true, like, you have to be able to take care of yourself, and you aren't going to be able to fully present and show up for these families if you aren't filling your own cup, and we talk about that a lot here, and Tactical Harmony is soul care because we got hard charters, we got executives, entrepreneurs, high performers, that's our audience. These are the go-getters, not the couch potatoes, and you gotta fill your tank. You gotta do something for yourself. And the topic of this episode, obviously, are sweet babies and end of life care. It was hard in these last few months for me to want to leave the house as well. And Dr. Murray talked about that with the elderly couple that they had to swap who was going to leave and take care of their baby. I also struggled with that, but I also gave myself the gift that, hey, if I do need to take a short trip or if I need to do something, that's what Diego would want. And it's not loving to me to feel like, hey, I just need to watch over him. Is he breathing? Let me watch him and study him 24/7. That is absolutely not helping that dog. And I know that. They're little mirrors to us. And so having your own energy and emotional regulation and taking care of yourself, it could be, as Dr. Murray said, taking, your dog out for a walk or your horse and working out every morning, which gets those endorphins going and the blood flowing and you're feeling better. Movement feels so good. That's one of the things that I do as well. And specifically movement outside because forest bathing is so healthy, and just give yourself that gift. If you have a pet that might be declining or it's coming up and you feel that, or perhaps you had to say goodbye recently or recently-ish to a loved one or a pet, give yourself the gift of taking care of yourself because I can tell you that's what they would want.
Most definitely. And kind of touching, going back just a little bit on kind of high performing and staying busy. I mean, I personally work 7 days a week, so I don't always have, full days of just like rest and recuperation, but I always try to find something or a short period of time within that day to do something that I enjoy. So making little segments, throughout the day where I'm able to step away from work and kind of refresh can definitely be.
Yeah, I mean, and you're dealing with something so emotionally heavy. And I don't have experience in your area, but as a former special agent with NCIS and dealing with horrific things and crimes, and I'm with victims who are crying, I was asked for years, how did you deal with that? How could you, endure that? And for me, I answered, well, one, it's my profession and I can separate that. Of course, my heart goes out to these families and the victims and all of the things that are going on, but I am here for a very profound moment in their lives and they're going to remember how I presented, they're going to remember how I made them feel, and that is something that always helped me in a situation that is full of trauma and tragedy for these families. That's what they are going to remember. And I will be my very best self for them. And then when I'm able to fill my cup and make sure that I'm nurturing myself, I will do that. And so I can see that how that translates for you and your emotionally heavy, experience when, folks are crying and it's very, very, very difficult. You have to have that harmony. You absolutely have to. It's a non-negotiable. So, curious, have you ever had to decline a family that they wanted to do euthanasia and you didn't think that they were ready?
I personally have not declined. I have had some situations where I'm going into the owner's home, and as we're talking and as, I'm getting more information that we kind of are making this decision together. I always say it's our job as veterinarians to give the client every option and informed options possible, A, B, C, D, whatever, the spectrum of care is, and make sure that the client is able to make an informed decision, but then they're the ones making this decision. So I think that's, we've most certainly had instances like that where I get there, we're talking more about the pet and we say, hey, maybe, we can try some different medications or try some things differently. And the owners, is motivated and are wanting to try these different things. And we are, not proceeding with the euthanasia process at that time, and are talking more, of palliative care.
That consultation is so important. And I think if anything, it should provide comfort and like I'm going to call it a safety net that if you're worried, am I making this too soon? Talk to Dr. Murray. Talk to the hospice veterinarian in your area so you are making that informed decision and it's not too soon, too late, because those can be haunting. You are making an informed decision and you have people, you have these experts that this is what they do for a living, and you can have that informed discussion and understand, is it the right time? Is there something else that potentially we could do? So if that consultation means everything. And I think a lot of people don't know that that exists. They have to make the decision or not. Yes, ultimately, you do need to make the decision, but having that consultation is huge. What is behavioral euthanasia? Can you walk us through that? Because I think often we think, hey, it's a senior pet, it's the end of life, or it's a disease or cancer. But what about behavior issues?
Yes, no, this is something I see. I don't want to say commonly, but especially as an in-home euthanasia veterinarian, it can be a lot less stressful for those type of animals as well compared to going into the clinic, because that can just be additional triggers for them. Behavioral euthanasia is kind of described as, I always like to say, it's when the dog is not feeling okay or comfortable within their own skin. There is, of course, certain dogs that become aggressive or reactive to certain triggers, children, other strangers in the house, their resource guarding or food, things like that. But true behavioral euthanasia, in my opinion, is when we're unable to predict these triggers. We've tried multiple different trainers, multiple different behaviorists, as well as, different medications working with your veterinarian as well. Most of mine have behavioral consultations or appointments I've gone through. These dogs have been rehomed multiple times as well. And we're kind of, this is truly the last, piece that we can give them, because there's nothing we're able to predict on why these dogs are reacting this way, and it can be really harmful to other dogs in the area. It can be harmful to us as humans and the owner, as well as even some dogs are kind of going after themselves too, can be really troublesome. And these type of appointments are definitely very emotional, because it feels like you're giving up on the pet, but truly, we're finally letting them just be at peace.
Is there a common myth out there that people think about euthanasia that you're like, "Oh my god, that is so not true. I wish people wouldn't think that or put that out there." Is there something out there that you would like to correct for our audience here today?
I would say that it's giving up on your pet. And most certainly, I feel like it is the exact opposite of giving up on your pet. Humane euthanasia is truly the last act of love we could ever give them. And it is having them be at peace and be pain and suffering free.
I love that you said that. Amen. That is so, so important. You're not giving up on them. It is a gift that you are giving them. It's the final act of love. And I know it is hard as hell to really allow yourself to think that and feel that in on the day of or the next morning, which is incredibly hard when you're waking up without them or going home that first night without them, or when they leave the home, if it's an in-home euthanasia. I totally get it. I see you. I feel you. I have gone through this now 2 times, and one is very raw and fresh for me. But it is a final act of love. And I promise it will come through eventually for you if you are enduring that. And so I know I asked you this question, what do you do for you? But what are you like behind the scenes? Because I know that you are very calm and you're presenting that way right now, Dr. Murray. You're very calm. And I would I would feel very calm around you in a very high emotional state. But what are you like behind the scenes when you're not, the veterinarian Dr. Murray? Who is John?
Yes, no, it's really funny because I have my close friends and family. They see the things on social media, and they see, during appointments, and even the technicians I do work in a veterinary clinic a couple days a month as well. And I am a very high energy, very outgoing type of person. So when people see, me and during these appointments or on social media, they're like, oh my gosh, it's like, what is going on? Like, this isn't Dr. John Murray, but I don't know. It's like, I don't want to say I've it's like a different feeling that comes over me when I'm doing these appointments. I don't want to say like this is my purpose in life, but that truly is, the feeling is when I'm going into these appointments, it's like this zen and this calmness kind of coming over me and presenting and like you said, you have to be the best version of yourself showing up for these people every day. So that's most certainly who I try to be during these appointments, but who I am deep down and who I've been since I was little. I am so outgoing. I love to go out, do things with friends. I'm always the, one engaging things or trying to set things up to do things with friends and family. So I'm an extremely outgoing person and very high energy as well.
I love it. I love
Yes.
it. I never cease to amaze me and fascinate me in human behavior. And there's so many parts to you, and embrace all parts. As Dr. Murray does, he embraces the Zen and his profession and the love and peace he is able to give these families in a very, very profound moment and moments of their lives. But then he also is fun and goofy and wants to do all the things and is the outgoing person. And he embraces that. And that is to live authentically, my friends. That is to live authentically. And it reinforces a message that God, I think I've shared probably a long time ago, but it can be this and that. It's not always this or that. You can do this and that. I can be incredibly serious and run an investigation or run a podcast, and I can also sing every word to Dr. Dre's next episode. Yes, I can. I'm aging myself. Uh, but like, all those things can be true. I can do these things, and I can also have multiple sides of me, and that is to live authentically and in alignment with your values and what brings you joy and what lights you up. So you do present better in your career and you present better at home. And so I love that you called that out.
No, that was perfectly said. And nobody's really ever asked me that question before. So I love that you did.
And we're smiling. See, like, we're talking about something that's a little heavy, but you can still smile and have fun. And that is life, my friends, the spectrum of emotions. Couple last questions for you. How has your relationship with Heidi changed, if at all, or your horse Chance, by virtue of your career?
Yes, especially, I'm human just like everybody else. And when I get home after a long day or getting home late at night and all I want to do is truly kind of go down and go to sleep, lay down and go to sleep, that it's, hey, she's been waiting on me for the last 6 hours. Let's go outside. Let's go on a walk. Let's go do something. And I truly try to live, especially experiencing, these people's last moments with their pet. They are wishing, for more good moments. So I try to live by that mantra that it's like, I want more good moments with my dog. And even when I'm exhausted or I'm tired or I'm not in the mood to do it, I try to, snap out of that and truly give Heidi the best life possible.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I can share that. Recently, I have been so present with Ivy, my shepherd, and I've always been present with her. I pride myself in when I'm with my dogs, I'm with my dogs. When I'm with you, I'm with you. And that's something that a gift that I try to give myself and for those who are around me. But since Diego has crossed over, I have been very present with Miss Ivy, who is also grieving. We want to call that out. Dogs, cats, other beings in the house can also grieve. So I know she is grieving, and I'm there for her and I'm there for myself. We are there for each other. And I'm so present with her. I watch her sniff the air and look for the bears or the mountain lions or the coyotes or all the crazy wildlife that we have here in Montana. And I just watch her enjoy eating her food when it was, is Diego going to eat today? I'm not sure. And she just eats it so effortlessly, and I'm grateful. So I find myself feeling a lot of gratitude with her, which I'm sure you experience with Heidi, because of this recent loss that I'm enduring and the contrast of it. And so that is also a gift. Final question for you, Dr. Murray. For the pet owners who are listening to this right now, perhaps they have a pet that is declining or increasing in age, or perhaps they are wondering if it's time. What message would you like to leave them with here today?
That is such a loaded question. I would say, whatever decision you are making, it is most certainly made out of love. And kind of like we touched on throughout this whole episode, just please try to remember all the incredible moments, weeks, years that you've had with your pets and not try to put so much emphasis on their last moment if it doesn't always go the way that you've planned it.
Love that. Dr. Murray, where can our audience find you if they are interested in your services or learning more about you or all of the amazing content and education that you put out?
Yes, so I am based here in the Chicagoland area. You can find me on CodaPet, www.codapet.com. We are composed of about 180 veterinarians throughout the country. So you can help find somebody in your local area as well if you're needing these end of life services. As well, you can find me on social media at Dr. Murray Hospice Vet on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Wonderful. I will have all of those links listed below in the show notes. Dr. Murray, I appreciate every bit of your heart and what you do in this world. I know it's a lot. And the earth angels, as I affectionately call you, like you, make this world a better place and give so much love and grace. And before I say goodbye, I want to dedicate this episode to Diego. I love you. And see, there's the tears. I was so good at holding it. I dedicate it to Diego. I love you. Thank you.